Space, the final frontier. This is the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Its mission to explore the solar system, to seek out new observations and data, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now the host of the Observer's Notebook, Tim Robertson.
Hello and welcome to episode 167 of the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. I am Tim Robertson, the host of the podcast and also the coordinator of the training program with the ALPO. Thanks for downloading and listening. The Association of Lunar Planetaries collects and analyzes observations of various solar system bodies and associated phenomena, and publishes detailed reports concerning these bodies in its quarterly publication, the Journal of the Association of Lunar Planetary Observers. This podcast depends upon donations from you, yes, you, our listeners, to keep it going. If you enjoy what you hear in the podcast and you want to help support it, you can donate via Patreon. You can start off by giving as little as $1 per month. If you feel even more generous, for $5, you receive early access to the podcast before it goes public. For a monthly donation of $10, you receive a copy of the Novice Observer's Handbook. And for $35 a month, you are going to be a producer noted on the podcast. You can help us out by going to www.patreon.com/observersnotebook. If you'd like to join the ALPO, membership begins at $22 a year. Find out more at www.alpo-astronomy.org. And we're also on the Facebook. Just search for ALPO Astronomy. And this podcast also has a Facebook page as well. Just search for Observer's Notebook. And if you enjoy what you hear on the podcast, please subscribe and hit that little bell button so you never miss another episode. And now, episode 167, and it's time for Bob Lunsford and Summertime Meteor Showers. Enjoy. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to this edition of the Observer's Notebook podcast. We're talking meteor showers today, so that obviously means we're talking about Lunsford. Bob Lunsford, welcome back to the podcast, Bob.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back. It's summertime and meteor season in the Northern Hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So it actually won't kick into high gear until about the 15th of July. It's like someone turns on the spigot of meteors. But the first 2 weeks of July, actually, it's going to be mooned anyway, so we're not missing much. Right. But they're much like the spring months. You're not going to see more than half a dozen meteors an hour, even during the peak morning hours. So it starts off slow, but come, I'd say, the weekend starting July 15th, starts off, it kicks into high gear then. Okay. About that time, we have the about 3 showers starting. The Perseids, which we all know and love. Right. The Alpha Capricornids, which aren't very well known, but they tend to produce a high percentage of fireballs. Oh. And the third one is the Southern Delta Aquariids. Now, both the Capricornids and the Aquariids will peak on the last day of July. And the Capricornids only reach a hourly rate of about 5 an hour. So nothing too exciting, but like I said, a high percentage of those are fireballs. So it won't be anything like last year's Taurid barrage of fireballs, but it still adds a nice few meteors to the warm summer nights. Now the Delta Aquariids are kind of opposite. They're stronger. From northern latitudes, they can produce up to about 15 meteors an hour at about 3 in the morning when they're highest above the southern horizon. But this year, they coincide with the full moon. In fact, both the Capricornids and Aquariids peak on the same night, which is July 31st. Full moon's on August 1st. So they're going to be squashed. But we can see the activity ramping up while the moon, goes from new to full, because there will still be a couple hours of darkness up around until the 25th, 26th.
Okay.
And pretty much after that, the moon will be in the sky the remainder of the night. So that's what we have to look forward to in July. The first probably 10 days in August are going to be filled with moonlight. So not much we can say about that. But come around the 10th, the Perseids will be kicking into high gear. And this year, they will peak on the night of August 12th/13th, Saturday night, Sunday morning. So it's good for all those people that have weekends off. So the moon will be 2 days before new. So it'll be a real skinny crescent, and it won't even, most people probably won't even see it, because it'll rise probably the same time dawn starts. So a lot of, we always say, watch the Perseids right before dawn. The radiance high in the sky, that's where you see the most meteors. But actually, you can see them all night long. The only problem is during the evening hours, the radiant lies low on the northern horizon. So, 90% of the activity then is going to be blocked by the horizon, and you only see a few of them shoot overhead or skim the east or west horizon. Now, if you can only observe during that time, don't give up, because the meteors you do see are barely skimming the Earth's atmosphere. They tend to be very long and long-lasting. So your normal Perseid is less than a second and usually pretty short. Now, these meteors you see just as soon as it gets dark, they tend to last several seconds and can shoot 50, 60 degrees of the sky.
Wow.
So there's not many of them, but the ones you see are pretty jaw-dropping.
Okay.
So that's, one good thing about observing early. But as the night progresses for the Perseids, the radiant raises higher into the northeastern sky. The meteors will become faster and shorter, but you'll see more of them.
Okay. Now, is this meteor shower related to a comet?
Oh, yeah. The comet was discovered in 1861 by two guys, last names of Swift and Tuttle. So it's Comet Swift-Tuttle. It has a orbital period of 120 years. So it was last seen in 1990, so it's going to be a while before it makes it around again.
Okay.
But and it really doesn't matter, because this comet has made so many orbits, even though it's 120 years, it has been around a long time. So there are many trails of debris produced by this comet.
Okay.
And when we say the Perseids are going to be best on the morning of August 13th, that means we're going to be right in the middle of all these trails.
Okay.
So we don't, there are some we're going to expect it to cross very close to, but those were created, hundreds of years ago. So we're not expecting anything fantastic. It's just the night of the 12th, 13th is when we're in the core of all these orbits. So that's the best time, no matter where you are on the Earth, to see the Perseid meteors.
Okay.
Now, the meteors you see in July from the Perseid showers, they don't actually shoot from Perseus. They'll actually be coming from Cassiopeia, because as the Earth orbits around the sun, the actual radiant changes by about a degree eastward per night. So every night it'll move a little bit eastward until it crosses into Perseus around the 10th of August, and then it'll be very close to the double cluster at the time of maximum activity. And it keeps going most of the month and lasts until probably the 1st of September. And by that time, it's in the well-known constellation of Camelopardalis, the giraffe.
The well-known constellation.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there's no star brighter than fourth magnitude in that constellation. So it has a long path during its activity period, but the main time it's active, it's within the boundaries of Perseus, and well seen from the northern hemisphere. Unfortunately, if you are probably south of 30 degrees south latitude, you're out of luck because the radiant does not rise from beyond then. But folks in the southern tropics can see Earth grazers in the middle of the night from the Perseus. Not many, but like I said, the ones you see will be spectacular.
Okay.
But and if you go too far north, guess what? It's twilight all night long and still in August. So north of 60 degrees north latitude, you're out of luck. You may see the fireballs that occur during Perseus, but other than that, it's just too bright. So your best latitudes are probably the southern tier of states in the United States, along California through Texas and Florida.
Okay.
So you have best combination of high radiant before dawn and longer nights. So it's a good deal.
Now, how many meteors per hour?
It all depends what night you're watching and where you're watching from.
Okay.
Now, if let's talk about the night of maximum. That's when almost everybody's going to be out.
Right.
So if you are watching from the city and go outside, get comfortable in your lounge chair and look up, you'll probably see about 20 an hour.
Okay.
Now, that's assuming you can see no stars dimmer than fifth magnitude.
Right.
If you go to a more rural area and can see 6 magnitude stars, that rate will probably double to 40 an hour.
Okay.
And if you go to the mountaintops or deserts where there's no light, expect an average of 1 per minute, 60 an hour.
Okay.
So, like the old saying goes that I just made up, the more stars you see, the more meteors you'll see.
That makes sense. Okay. I like that old saying.
I should add, if you're out of luck and it's cloudy that night, the Perseus can produce surprises. 2 years ago, we had an outburst on the morning of the 14th, 2 full days before after the maximum. Back then in 21, the maximum was predicted on the 12th, not the 13th. So those people who endured two more nights of meteor activity were in for a surprise, because the rates that morning far surpassed what we saw on the maximum night.
Wow!
So that was really really cool.
Okay.
And I knew immediately. I was out, and I knew immediately something was screwy. And I went to my meteor cameras. I have a system that records a system of 6 cameras that records the night sky. And that particular night, I had over 700 meteors.
Whoa!
Compared to 400 for the night of maximum.
Wow!
So it was just incredible.
Is there a reason that was like that?
You know what? This was an orbit that nobody really knew about. And to be honest, I don't think anybody's ever figured out when that was produced. But by golly, we ran smack dab into it, and for a couple hours, they were coming down about 100 an hour.
Wow! Now, for a meteor shower like this, it's a larger, more populated with meteor showers with meteors. How many nights would you actually get up and observe?
I would definitely a minimum of 3: the night before maximum, the night of maximum, and the night after. And if you still have any stamina after that, for sure, especially with a new moon this year,
right?
Be out as many nights as possible, because this is probably, next to the Geminids, the best shower of the year.
Okay.
So, definitely in the top 5 meteor producing nights of the year. Even the nights before and after are within the top 10. So, yeah, definitely, if you can make it out more than one night, don't hesitate.
Sounds like a plan.
Amen. Now, as we proceed through August, the Perseids will probably, the rates will reduce by about 50% each night past the maximum until they're down to just a few an hour by the end of the month. And like I said, by that time, they're hard to recognize because they're shooting from the giraffe. And one other shower that may catch your interest is one that peaks on, let me look at my list here, the Kappa Cygnets on August 14th. That's just one night after the Perseids. This is for folks who are out early in the evening. Cygnus lies high overhead at that time. If you happen to see any bright, slow meteors from northern Cygnus kind of toward the head of Draco, chances are that belongs to the Kappa Cygnets.
Okay.
And once again, rates are low, similar to the Alpha Capricornids, but we did love to see those fireballs, though.
Okay.
And as we proceed through August, things kind of die down again, but they're much better than they were in the beginning of July. Your average morning during August will be probably a dozen meteors an hour under good skies, and even the evening hours have now picked up, because right now in the beginning of July you're only seeing a couple an hour, but by August that has kicked into high gear also. I mean, you're seeing, oh geez, probably up to 4 or 5 an hour, which is pretty darn good for the evening. So
right.
And the only other shower that's probably worth mentioning is the Alpha Aurigas, which has produced outbursts in several years. Unfortunately, that peaks on September 1st, and that happens to be the night of the full moon, I believe. August 31st is the full moon.
Yeah, all right.
So one day away. So, geez. Not good for the showers that aren't well known,
right,
like the Perseids, but at least we got the grand shower under good conditions this summer. So I should add that the Perseids you see early in July and late, now they have been perturbed greatly to be that far from maximum. So obviously they may have smacked into another meteoroid or something, but something has knocked them out of whack, and they are few and far between. But you begin to see the main trails of these meteors as we cross into August.
Okay.
And like I said, the night of the 12/13th is the one to circle on your calendar.
Right. I just put it in my calendar.
And I'll tell you, these don't happen on a weekend very often. So that they seem better. And with a new moon, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a Sunday morning.
Yeah, sure is.
Perfect.
Now, we'd love to hear your comments about them. And even more, if you really feel challenged and would like to count the number that you see during your watch, that'd be great. The normal period is an hour. So if you could watch for a solid hour and tell us how many Perseids, and there's going to be other meteors that you won't recognize that come from other parts of the sky. That's completely normal. They're called sporadic. They are old meteor showers that we can't even recognize anymore. They probably produce one per day or less. So we just lump them in the random or sporadic bin.
Okay.
But if you could tell us how many Perseids and how many sporadics you see per, in the time you were out, that'd be great.
Okay.
We also would like to combine everybody's observations so we can compare them. And the only way to do that is if you can tell us your sky conditions. Are there any clouds? Are there any trees blocking your view? And most importantly, what's the dimmest star you can see? For most people living in the suburbs, it's probably around 5th magnitude. And that introduces a pretty big correction. So that we can compare it to others. The standard limiting magnitude is 6.5, and unfortunately, hardly any of us are going to get that good. But from my house, I can get to 6.0. So there's a slight correction on there. Anything that I see will need to be multiplied by about 1.25. But if you're observing under suburban skies, your rates will probably have to be doubled to compare to anybody else.
Yeah, I just had cataract surgery, so I'm sure my limited magnitude is drastically increased.
Oh, you know what? You're going to see 7.0, and we'll actually have to subtract from what you see to compare it to anybody else.
My skies aren't that good where I go for a 7.0. But right now, though, it's light sensitivity I have. I wouldn't doubt it. That's wild.
Okay, well, I would certainly tell folks to get out if your skies are clear. The remainder of the year, the Orionids peak on October 22nd under a first quarter moon. So that'll set around midnight or 1. So that'll be good for them. Good. The Leonids, they peak on the 18th, which is pretty much the same thing. Mm-hmm. So they'll be unaffected by moonlight. The Geminids occur under a new moon. So this is really going to be a good half year to watch meteor showers. And we'll have to have another podcast about the fall showers.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe one on the Orionids and another one in the Geminids later.
Certainly. They're both worth it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
All right. And I certainly wish everybody listening good luck with your weather, and have a bunch of wishes ready, because if you're out there long enough, you'll fill them all.
Sounds like a plan, Bob. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast and giving us a update.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Right. Until next time.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Observer's Notebook podcast. Again, I want to thank Bob Lunsford for coming on and talking about the summertime meteor showers. And get out there and observe the meteor showers. All Bob's contact information and web links are in the show notes, so check those out. And please, get out there and observe those meteor showers. They're a lot of fun. We upload new episodes of the Observer's Notebook on the 1st and 15th of every month. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. If you do, please give us a rating and a review. I'd really, really appreciate it. You can also listen to us on Apple Radio, iHeartRadio, Soundcloud, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon Echo, Spotify, and also on the ALPO YouTube channel. You can help support the podcast by donating to it via Patreon. You can give up to $35 a month, where you receive 1 year's membership to the ALPO and producer credits on the podcast. And with that, I'd like to thank the producers of this podcast, Steve Siedentop and Michael Moyer, for their generous support. The link for Patreon, as well as the link for the ALPO, is in the show notes. If you'd like to get a hold of me, my email address is commentman@commentman.net, or on Twitter at @ObserversNBPod. Until next time, my hope is you always have clear and steady skies. Thanks for listening.